Captain Jake Morrison sat in the cold metal chair and watched the alien ambassadors argue. The meeting room on Federation Station Alpha was huge, with curved walls that reached up to a glass dome. Through the dome, Jake could see the stars and the busy traffic of ships coming and going. But Jake was not looking at the stars. He was listening to the Zephyrian ambassador talk about humans like they were children. "The human contribution to our defense fleet is noted," said Ambassador Velkorth, his blue skin shimmering under the lights. His voice was smooth but cold. "However, we must focus our resources on species with proven military capability." The other aliens around the big round table made sounds of agreement. The Krolex representative, a large creature covered in thick armor plates, nodded his massive head. "Humans build adequate mining ships," he said in his deep voice. "But war requires experience. Humans have been in space for less than 200 years. Jake kept his face calm, but inside he felt angry. He had heard this same conversation dozens of times. The aliens always talked about humans like they were weak newcomers who did not understand real warfare. "Our shipyards produce reliable vessels," Jake said quietly. "We may not have the largest fleet, but our ships are well built." Ambassador Velkorth made a sound that might have been laughter. "Yes, Captain Morrison. Your mining barges and cargo haulers are indeed well built. But this discussion concerns dreadnoughts and battlecruisers. Ships of war." Jake nodded and said nothing more. There was no point in arguing. These aliens had made up their minds about humans long ago. They saw the small human fleet and thought they knew everything about human military power. If only they knew the truth. 300 light-years away, Dr. Lisa Zhang floated in zero gravity inside a construction module. Around her, workers in spacesuits welded massive steel beams that were each the size of a city block. Through the transparent aluminum window, she could see the project that had been her life's work for the past 15 years. It looked like a small planet. Dark gray metal curved away in all directions, covered with construction scaffolding and the bright sparks of welding torches. But this was no planet. This was humanity's greatest secret. "Status report. Section 7. Lisa said, into her headset. "Primary hull plating at 96% completion," came the reply. "Weapon systems installation begins next week." Lisa smiled. The Titan project was almost finished. Soon, the galaxy would learn that humans were not the weak species everyone thought they were. The construction site was hidden in the Kepler 442 system, inside the hollow shell of a dead star. No alien ships ever came here. The star had died millions of years ago, leaving behind only a cold, dark ball of matter, perfect for hiding the largest construction project in human history. "Dr. Zhang," said another voice on the radio. "Commander, Jackson wants to see you in the command center." Lisa pushed off from the wall and floated toward the exit. The command center was in the middle of the construction site, a small space station that controlled the thousands of workers and robots building the ship. Commander Pete Jackson was waiting for her when she arrived. He was a tall man with short gray hair and worried eyes. Pete had been in charge of security for the Titan project since the beginning. His job was to make sure no aliens ever found out what humans were really building. "We have a problem," Pete said without greeting her. "Long-range sensors picked up a scout ship 3 days ago. It was far outside the system, but it was definitely scanning in our direction." Lisa felt her stomach drop. "Alien? Unknown design." It jumped away before we could get a good look. Pete pulled up a holographic display showing the outer edge of the solar system. "Could be nothing. Could be pirates looking for salvage, but we can't take chances." Lisa nodded. The Titan project had been secret for 8 decades. If aliens discovered it now, before it was ready, all their work would be wasted. Worse, the aliens would know that humans had been lying about their military strength. "How much longer do we need?" Pete asked. 6 months for the main ship, but we have 11 more under construction at other sites." Lisa looked at the data on her tablet. "The earliest any of them will be ready is 2 years. Pete frowned. "Admiral Sullivan is not going to like that timeline." Admiral Kate Sullivan was the highest-ranking human officer that most aliens had never heard of. While the Federation thought the human fleet was commanded by Admiral Chen back on Earth, The real military power belonged to Kate Sullivan. She controlled the secret fleet that had been growing in hidden locations across human space for nearly a century. The plan had been simple. When humans first encountered alien civilizations, they quickly realized they were outgunned. The aliens had been fighting wars in space for thousands of years. They had bigger ships, better weapons, and more experience. So humans did what humans always did when faced with a stronger enemy. They smiled, acted friendly, and secretly built the biggest weapons they could imagine. The Titan-class ships were not just large. They were the size of small moons. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy an entire fleet. But more importantly, they carried technology that no alien species had ever seen. Humans had been very busy during their first century in space. "Sir," said a young technician at one of the control stations, "we're receiving a priority message from Federation Station Alpha." Pete and Lisa moved to the communication console. The message was encrypted with codes that only a few humans knew. Jake, Morrison's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired and frustrated. "Priority alert to all Titan stations," he said. "Long-range monitoring posts have detected unusual energy signatures at the galaxy's edge. Pattern suggests possible incoming fleet. Size unknown. Admiral Sullivan has ordered all projects to accelerate construction timelines." The message ended, leaving Pete and Lisa staring at the blank screen. "So much for 6 months," Lisa said quietly. Outside the command center, work continued on the massive ship. Thousands of humans labored in secret, building weapons that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. They had been patient for decades, letting aliens think they were weak and harmless. But if something was coming from beyond the galaxy's edge, that patience might soon come to an end. General Alex Turner stood in the war room deep inside Earth's moon and watched the galaxy burn. The massive screen in front of him showed red dots spreading across the star map like a disease. Each red dot was a solar system that had gone silent. "In the past week, status report," Alex said to the room full of officers. 17 systems confirmed lost," said Colonel Janet Price, reading from her tablet. "The Altair system fell 6 hours ago. No survivors." Alex had been preparing for this moment his entire career. For 40 years, he had studied every piece of data about threats from outside the galaxy. He had run war games and built strategies, but seeing it happen in real time made his chest feel tight. "What about the Federation response?" he asked. "Complete disaster, sir." Colonel Price pulled up another display. The Zephyrian Third Fleet engaged the enemy at Rigel. They lasted 14 minutes. The Krolek sent their entire battle group to stop the advance at Vega. Gone in 20 minutes. The enemy had no name yet. The few surviving scouts who had seen them and escaped called them different things. The Devourers, the Metal Swarm, the Hunger. But Alex thought of them simply as the reason humanity had been building in secret for 8 decades. "Sir," said Lieutenant Bobby Hayes from the communication station, "Captain Brooks is requesting immediate landing clearance. She says it's urgent." "Bring her straight here," Alex ordered. Captain Maya Brooks had been flying reconnaissance missions at the galaxy's edge for 3 years. She piloted the fastest ship in the human fleet, a small scout vessel that could jump between star systems faster than anything the aliens had ever built. If Maya was back early from her mission, it meant bad news. Maya entered the war room 5 minutes later, still wearing her flight suit. Her short brown hair was messy and her face was pale. She had the look of someone who had seen something terrible. "General," she said, slightly out of breath. "I got close enough to observe them directly. What we're facing is not a normal enemy." Alex gestured for her to continue. "They're machines, sir. All of them. No biological components at all. But they're not robots like we understand them. They think together as one mind. When I destroyed one of their scouts with my ship's weapons, every other enemy ship in the system immediately changed their behavior." Maya activated her wrist display and projected a hologram into the center of the room. The image showed sleek metal ships that looked like giant insects. They moved in perfect formation, thousands of them swarming around planets like ants around food. "They don't just destroy," Maya continued. "They consume. I watched them strip mine an entire planet in 4 hours. They break down everything into basic materials and use it to build more ships. Every system they attack makes them stronger. Colonel Price looked at the data streaming across her screen. The Federation estimates show they've built at least 50,000 new ships from the materials they've taken. Alex felt cold. This was worse than their worst-case scenarios. An enemy that grew stronger with every victory would be impossible to stop with normal tactics. There's more, Maya said quietly. I tested their adaptation capabilities. I fired on one of their ships with a plasma cannon, destroyed it completely. Then I fired the same weapon at another ship 30 seconds later. The plasma beam had no effect. They had already adapted their armor. The room went silent. Alex understood what this meant. The standard Federation tactic of massing the same type of weapons would be useless. After the first few shots, the enemy would become immune. How long before they reach the core systems? Alex asked. At their current speed, they'll be at the Centauri colonies in 6 days, Maya said. Earth and the major Federation worlds in 2 weeks. Alex turned to look at the star map again. Red dots continued to appear as more systems fell silent. The aliens who had dismissed humanity for decades were dying, and their mighty fleets were being swept away like dust. Dr. Sam Rodriguez had been watching the invasion from his laboratory on Titan Station. As humanity's leading expert on alien biology, he had been asked to study the enemy. But what he found made him question everything he knew about life in the universe. They're not just machines, he told Admiral Kate Sullivan over the secure channel. There's something else. The metal itself seems to be alive. It grows and changes like living tissue, but it follows laws of engineering instead of biology. Admiral Sullivan's face on the screen looked tired. She had been coordinating humanity's response from her secret command ship hidden in the asteroid belt. Can they be stopped? With conventional weapons? No. Sam pulled up his research data. Every attack just teaches them how to defend against that attack method. But they do have weaknesses, tell me. They're perfect at adapting to known threats, but they can't adapt to something completely new. If you hit them with a weapon type they've never seen before, it works. The problem is, it only works once. Admiral Sullivan was quiet for a moment. So we need a lot of different weapons. More than different, Admiral. We need weapons so unique that they can't predict how to defend against them. And we need to use each type only once. After ending the call, Admiral Sullivan sat alone in her command chair and thought about the 12 Titan-class ships hidden throughout human space. Each ship had been built with completely different weapon systems. No two ships shared the same technology. The aliens had always wondered why humans built such diverse fleets instead of standardizing their designs. They thought it showed poor planning and lack of focus. They were wrong. Humans had learned from studying thousands of years of Earth's military history. The most successful armies were the ones that could adapt and surprise their enemies. Now that knowledge would be tested against an enemy that had consumed civilizations across multiple galaxies. On Federation Station Alpha, Jake Morrison watched the emergency session of the Galactic Council. The same aliens who had dismissed human military contributions were now begging for help from anyone who could provide it. All available ships must be sent to defend the core worlds, Ambassador Velkorth was saying. His blue skin had turned pale and his usual confidence was gone. This includes every vessel capable of mounting weapons. Jake stood up slowly. The human fleet stands ready to assist. The Krolex representative looked at him with desperate eyes. Captain Morrison, we appreciate the offer, but your mining ships will not be effective against this threat. Jake almost smiled. Admiral Sullivan has asked me to inform the Council that humanity may have additional resources available. Resources that have not been previously disclosed. The room fell silent. Every alien ambassador turned to look at him. What kind of resources? Ambassador Velkorth asked carefully. The kind that might surprise you, Jake said. Captain Rick Barnes had waited his entire life for this moment. He sat in the command chair of the USS Goliath, surrounded by the largest bridge ever built on a human ship. The bridge was the size of a football stadium, with hundreds of stations, operated by the best officers in the secret human fleet. For 30 years, Rick had commanded what the galaxy thought was a dead planet in the Ross 128 system. The aliens had surveyed it decades ago and marked it as worthless. No resources, no atmosphere, no life. They never looked at it again. They never noticed the massive engines hidden beneath the surface. They never saw the weapon systems disguised as natural rock formations. They never realized that what they thought was a planet was actually the most powerful warship ever constructed. "Captain," said Engineer Carla Davis from her station, "all systems are ready. The gravity generators are at full power." Rick looked at the main screen, which showed space around their position. In the distance, he could see the lights of the enemy fleet approaching Earth's solar system. Thousands of metal ships moving in perfect formation, ready to consume another star system. "Communications, open a channel to Admiral Sullivan," Rick ordered. Admiral Sullivan's face appeared on a smaller screen to his right. She was broadcasting from her flagship, hidden behind Jupiter's largest moon. "Captain Barnes, you are clear to reveal the Goliath. Show them what humans can really do." Rick nodded. After 8 decades of hiding, it was time to stop pretending to be weak. "All stations, prepare for combat operations," Rick announced to his crew. "Helm, take us out of planetary disguise mode." The ship shuddered as massive systems that had been sleeping for decades came to life. On the planet's surface, fake mountains and valleys began to slide away, revealing the true hull underneath. Weapon ports the size of city blocks opened along the equator. Engine nozzles larger than skyscrapers started to glow with blue fire. The USS Goliath was not just big. It was the size of Earth's moon, with armor plating thick enough to stop anything the galaxy had ever built. But size was not its only advantage. The ship was powered by technology that no alien species had ever seen. "Sir," said Tactical Officer Ben Clark, "enemy fleet has detected our movement. They're changing course to intercept." Rick smiled. "Let them come." On Federation Station Alpha, every alien ambassador was staring at their screens in shock. The sensors were showing something impossible. What they had thought was the dead planet Ross 128b was moving under its own power. Not only moving, but accelerating toward the enemy fleet at speeds that should have been impossible for something so large. "This is not possible," whispered Ambassador Velkorth. "Planets do not move like that." Jake Morrison stood at the back of the council chamber, trying not to smile. "That's not a planet, Ambassador. That's the USS Goliath." The Krolex representative turned his massive head toward Jake. "You said Goliath? That is a ship?" "One of our older models," Jake said casually. "We've had it in service for about 15 years. The aliens stared at him. Admiral Velkorth's blue skin had turned almost white. "How many ships like this do humans possess?" Jake pretended to think about it. "I'd have to check with Fleet Command. We don't usually discuss exact numbers." Back on the Goliath, Captain Barnes watched the enemy fleet spread out to meet them. The machine ships were fast and deadly, but they had never faced anything like what they were about to encounter. "Distance to enemy fleet?" Rick asked. 2 million kilometers in closing, Ben reported. "They're launching fighters." Rick could see them on the screen, thousands of small metal ships pouring out of the larger vessels like angry insects. Each fighter was the size of a normal human battleship, but to the Goliath they looked tiny. "Carla, activate the gravity field generators." Engineer Davis's hands moved across her control panel. "Gravity field ready, Captain. Shall I demonstrate the pinpoint setting or the area effect?" "Start with pinpoint. Pick the largest enemy ship." On the main screen, everyone watched as space itself seemed to bend around one of the enemy dreadnoughts. The massive machine ship, nearly 2 kilometers long, suddenly crushed inward on itself like a tin can being squeezed by an invisible hand. In 3 seconds, it became a ball of twisted metal the size of a car. The enemy fighters stopped their advance. For the first time since the invasion began, the machine swarm seemed confused. "They're trying to adapt," Ben reported, reading his instruments. "But they can't figure out what we did to their ship." Rick nodded. The gravity weapons were based on human understanding of space-time physics. The machines had never encountered anything like it, so they had no way to defend against it. "Fire main guns," Rick ordered. The Goliath's primary weapons were not lasers or missiles. They were focused gravity beams that could crack planets in half. When they fired, space itself seemed to tear open in front of the ship. The beams hit the enemy formation and simply erased everything they touched. Ships that had survived attacks from entire Federation fleets disappeared without a trace. The focused gravity didn't just destroy them, it compressed them out of existence. In 30 seconds, half the enemy fleet was gone. "Captain," said Communications Officer Nancy Wright, "we're receiving surrender signals from the remaining enemy ships." Rick looked surprised. "Surrender signals? I thought they were machines." "They are, sir. But apparently they're smart enough to know when they're outmatched." Admiral Sullivan's voice came over the communication channel. "Captain Barnes, do not accept their surrender. These machines learn from every encounter. We cannot give them the chance to study our weapons." Rick understood. "Ben, target the remaining ships. Use the planet cracker beam." The Goliath's most powerful weapon was designed to break apart asteroids for mining. It had never been tested in combat. When it fired, the beam was so intense that it lit up half the solar system. The remaining enemy ships simply stopped existing, not destroyed, not vaporized, but actually removed from reality by forces they could not understand or adapt to. The battle was over in 5 minutes. Across the galaxy, alien species who had been preparing for their final defeat suddenly found themselves staring at their sensors in disbelief. The unstoppable enemy that had crushed their greatest fleets had been completely destroyed by a single human ship. On Federation Station Alpha, Ambassador Velkorth looked at Jake Morrison with new respect and more than a little fear. "Captain Morrison," he said carefully, "when you said that ship was one of your older models, what exactly did you mean?" Jake checked his watch. Right about now, 11 more Titan-class ships would be powering up their systems and revealing themselves throughout human space. "I meant we've been busy building better ones," Jake said. Captain Danny Wright felt the USS Behemoth shake as its massive engines came online for the first time in 20 years. Around him, his crew worked at stations that had been waiting in silence, hidden inside what the galaxy thought was an empty nebula in the Cygnus sector. "Status report," Danny called out to his bridge crew. "All systems operational, Captain," replied his first officer, Lieutenant Commander Paula Green. "The spacefold generators are at full power." Danny smiled. While Captain Barnes had shown the galaxy what human gravity weapons could do, the Behemoth was built around completely different technology. This ship didn't just move through space, it folded space itself, allowing it to appear anywhere in the galaxy instantly. "Sir," said the communications officer, "Admiral Mitchell is requesting fleet coordination data." Danny looked at his main screen, which now showed 12 different views from 12 different locations across the galaxy. Each view showed a massive human warship powering up its systems and revealing itself to the shocked alien populations. Nearby, Admiral Ross Mitchell was coordinating the entire operation from his flagship, the USS Titan, hidden in the asteroid belt near Mars. For the first time in 8 decades, the full strength of humanity's secret fleet was being revealed. "This is Admiral Mitchell to all Titan-class vessels," came the voice over the fleet communication channel. "Operation Daylight is now active. All ships are cleared to engage any remaining enemy forces in your sectors." Danny watched as the other ships reported their status. The USS Colossus had been disguised as a moon orbiting a gas giant in the Vega system. The USS Leviathan had spent 30 years pretending to be an asteroid in the Alpha Centauri system. Each ship had a different specialty, different weapons, different ways of fighting that no enemy could predict or adapt to. "Captain Wright," said his tactical officer, "sensors are detecting enemy reinforcements approaching the Proxima sector. Estimated fleet size is over 10,000 ships." Danny was not worried. The machine enemies had called in everything they had left, trying to understand how humans had destroyed their advanced fleet so easily. They were about to learn that one human ship had been just the beginning. "Set course for Proxima. Engage spacefold drive." The USS Behemoth didn't accelerate. Instead, space around the ship began to bend and twist. To anyone watching from outside, The massive vessel simply disappeared from the Cygnus sector and appeared instantly 20 light-years away, right in the middle of the enemy fleet. The machine ships immediately opened fire with every weapon they had. Plasma beams, particle cannons, and missile swarms filled the space around the behemoth. But the human ship was protected by shields that worked on principles the machines had never encountered. "Temporal deflector shields holding steady," reported the shield operator. "Their weapons are hitting us 3 seconds before they fire them." Danny nodded. The behemoth's shields didn't just stop incoming attacks. They sent the energy backwards in time so the ship was protected before the enemy even decided to shoot. Return fire. Use the quantum disruptor array. The behemoth's weapons didn't fire energy or projectiles. They fired pure impossibility. When the quantum disruptors activated, enemy ships didn't explode or burn. They simply stopped making sense. Metal became liquid, computers turned into flowers, and engines began playing music instead of providing thrust. Within minutes, the entire enemy fleet had been transformed into abstract art floating in space. Dr. Emma Foster watched the battle from her manufacturing station, hidden inside Jupiter's Great Red Spot. As head of humanity's Rapid Production Division, her job was to build support vessels for the Titan-class ships. "How many frigates do you need?" she asked Admiral Mitchell over the communication link. "All of them," the Admiral replied. "Intelligence suggests the main enemy force is regrouping at the galaxy's edge. We're going to need every ship we can build." Emma looked at her production reports. In the past week since the enemy invasion began, her automated factories had constructed over 5,000 support ships. Each one was the size of a normal alien battleship, but they were just escorts for the Titan-class vessels. "I can have another 2,000 ready in 6 hours, Emma said. "But Admiral, are you sure we need this many ships? We've already proven that our Titan vessels can handle anything the enemy sends." Admiral Mitchell's face on her screen looked serious. "Dr. Foster, we've only fought their scouting forces so far. Long-range sensors show their main fleet has over 1 million ships. They've been consuming entire galaxies for thousands of years." Emma felt cold. 1 million ships was more than the entire Federation had ever built in its history. "There's something else," the Admiral continued. "The enemy is changing tactics. They're no longer trying to adapt to our weapons. Instead, they're building ships specifically designed to counter each type of attack we've used. They learn faster than we expected." On the bridge of the USS Colossus, Captain Janet Stone was dealing with exactly that problem. Her ship specialized in dimensional warfare, attacking enemies by shifting them into parallel universes where the laws of physics were different. "Captain," said her science officer, "the enemy fleet approaching our position has ships that appear to be dimensionally anchored. Our phase weapons are having no effect." Janet frowned. The machines were learning to counter human technology by using methods that shouldn't have been possible. "How many ships in their fleet?" 50,000, and they're all different designs. It's like they built a specific counter for every weapon system in our database. Janet realized what was happening. The enemy wasn't just adapting anymore. They were evolving, becoming something new with each battle. And they were doing it faster than humans could reveal new technology. "All ships, this is Admiral Mitchell," came the fleet-wide broadcast. "Long-range sensors confirm enemy main force is approaching. Estimated time of arrival is 6 hours. All Titan-class vessels are ordered to fall back to defensive positions around Earth." On Federation Station Alpha, Jake Morrison was watching the alien ambassadors panic as reports came in from across the galaxy. The revelation of humanity's secret fleet had changed everything, but the aliens were beginning to understand that even planet-sized warships might not be enough. "Captain Morrison," said Ambassador Velkorth, his voice shaking, "your ships are incredible, but the enemy has over 1 million vessels approaching. How can 12 ships, no matter how large, stand against such numbers?" Jake looked at the tactical display showing the enemy fleet. It was true that the numbers were overwhelming, but there was something the aliens still didn't understand about human military thinking. "Ambassador," Jake said calmly, "you're assuming that 12 ships is all we have." The alien's blue skin went pale. "What do you mean?" Jake activated his personal communicator. "Admiral Sullivan, please provide Ambassador Felcorth with the current fleet status. Admiral Sullivan's voice filled the council chamber. As of this moment, we have 47 Titan-class vessels operational, with 15 more coming online within the next day. Additionally, we have over 20,000 support vessels of various classes. The room went completely silent. Furthermore, Admiral Sullivan continued, "Our deep space construction facilities have been building continuously for 80 years. We currently have the industrial capacity to produce one Titan-class ship per month indefinitely." Ambassador Velkorth sat down heavily in his chair. "How long have you been planning this?" Jake smiled. "Since the day we first met alien civilization, Ambassador. Humans have a saying, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. We've been preparing for the worst for a very long time." President Helen Carter stood at the window of her office on Earth and watched the largest space battle in galactic history unfold above her planet. In the darkness of space, millions of lights flashed as human and machine fleets clashed in a fight that would decide the fate of every living thing in the galaxy. "Madam President," said her aide, Colonel Frank Morris, "Admiral Mitchell reports that the enemy main fleet has been engaged. All Titan-class vessels are performing within expected parameters." Helen nodded but kept watching the sky. She had been president of the Human Federation for 6 years, but she had only learned about the secret fleet when the invasion began 2 weeks ago. Even as the leader of humanity, she had not been trusted with the greatest military secret in human history. Now she understood why. The responsibility was almost too much to bear. "How many enemy ships have we destroyed?" she asked. "Over 800,000 confirmed," Colonel Morris replied, reading from his tablet. "But they keep building more from the wreckage of destroyed worlds. Admiral Mitchell estimates they still have at least 200,000 functional vessels." High above Earth, Captain Luke Murphy commanded the newest Titan-class ship in the human fleet. The USS Prometheus was only 3 months old, fresh from the construction yards hidden in the Kuiper Belt. Luke was 28 years old, making him the youngest captain to ever command a planet-sized warship. "Status report," Luke called to his bridge crew. "All weapon systems operational," replied his tactical officer, Lieutenant Sarah Wells. "The reality anchor is holding steady. Enemy ships in our sector cannot escape to parallel dimensions." The Prometheus was humanity's answer to the enemy's adaptation abilities. Instead of using weapons that could be countered, it used a reality anchor that forced the laws of physics to work the way humans wanted them to work. In the space around the Prometheus, the enemy's advanced technology simply stopped functioning. "Sir," said the communications officer, "Captain Barnes on the Goliath reports his sector is clear. The USS Behemoth has eliminated enemy forces in the Vega system. All other Titan-class vessels report successful engagement." Luke looked at the tactical display. The battle had been raging for 6 hours and humanity was winning, but the cost was enormous. 3 Titan-class ships had been destroyed and over 5,000 support vessels had been lost. The enemy had thrown everything they had at the human fleet. "Captain Murphy," came Admiral Mitchell's voice over the communication channel. "Sensors detect enemy retreat. They're falling back toward the galactic edge." Luke felt relieved, but also worried. "Are they surrendering, Admiral?" "Negative. They appear to be regrouping for another assault, but we've bought ourselves time to prepare." On Federation Station Alpha, Ambassador Grace Parker was meeting with representatives from every major alien species in the galaxy. As humanity's new chief diplomat, her job was to manage the complete change in galactic politics that had happened in the past 2 weeks. "The Krolex Empire formally requests a defense treaty with the Human Federation," said the Krolex ambassador, his voice much more respectful than it had been before the invasion. "We offer full access to our mining worlds in exchange for protection." Grace looked around the table at the other alien representatives. They all had the same desperate look. The species that had once dismissed humanity as weak newcomers were now begging for human protection. "The Zephyrian hegemony also requests a treaty," said Ambassador Velkorth. "We can provide advanced medical technology and scientific research facilities." Grace nodded politely. "The Human Federation appreciates these offers. President Carter is reviewing all requests for mutual defense agreements." What she didn't say was that humanity was now the strongest military power in the galaxy by far. The aliens needed humans much more than humans needed them. After the meeting, Grace walked to her private office and activated the secure communication link to Earth. President Carter's face appeared on the screen. "How are the negotiations going, Ambassador?" "Every species in the Federation wants a defense treaty with us," Grace replied. "Some are offering territories. Others are offering technology. A few are even offering to become human colonies." President Carter looked tired. The past 2 weeks had aged her considerably. "What's your recommendation?" "We need to be careful, Madam President. We're now the dominant military power, but that makes everyone either want to be our friend or our enemy. Some species are grateful for our protection. Others are afraid of what we might do with our power." On the bridge of the USS Prometheus, Luke received new orders from Earth. Instead of pursuing the retreating enemy, his ship was being assigned to lead a task force to explore beyond the galaxy's edge. "Our mission is to find out where the machine swarm came from," Luke told his crew. "Intelligence suggests there may be other galaxies under threat." His science officer, Dr. Mark Davis, pulled up long-range sensor data. "Captain, we're detecting artificial signals from the Andromeda Galaxy. The pattern suggests they might be distress calls." Luke realized what this meant. The machine swarm had not just attacked their galaxy. They were attacking everywhere, consuming entire galactic civilizations. "Helm, set course for the galactic edge. We're going to investigate." As the Prometheus moved toward the unknown, Luke thought about what humanity had accomplished. In just 2 weeks, they had gone from being the galaxy's weakest species to its strongest protector. But with that power came responsibility. Back on Earth, President Carter addressed the planet in a live broadcast. "My fellow humans," she began, "2 weeks ago, our galaxy faced extinction. Today we have not only survived, but we have become the guardians of countless civilizations. This was not the future we planned, but it is the future we have earned." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "For 80 years we built our fleet in secret, not for conquest, but for protection. We knew that one day, something would threaten the peace we all cherish. That day has come and gone, but our responsibility has just begun." The broadcast reached every human world, every space station, every ship in the fleet. "We are no longer the new species asking for acceptance. We are the species that others look to for safety. We will not let them down." In space stations and shipyards throughout human territory, construction continued on even larger vessels. The Titan-class ships had proven themselves, but humanity was already building the next generation. Solar system-class vessels that could protect not just one galaxy, but many. Captain Luke Murphy stood on the bridge of the Prometheus as his ship jumped beyond the galaxy's edge for the first time. Through the main screen, he could see the lights of distant galaxies, each one possibly facing the same threat they had just defeated. Humanity had spent a century preparing for one war. Now they were preparing for all the wars that might come. Chatti, Galaxy had learned not to underestimate humans. Soon the universe would learn the same lesson.